Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video we are going to discuss about various ways you can manage your Uber vehicle or your taxi vehicle if you decide to buy it today. So let's say for example you have saved up to 1 million Kenya shillings and you have bought yourself a nice vehicle, 650cc car, let's say Toyota Pixies, maybe Suzuki Alto, or maybe any other vehicle, even the 1000cc, any vehicle that you have. For instance, you have bought it, you have it inside your compound, and you have finally made a decision that that vehicle you want it to generate some money for you from the ride hailing industry, so Uber, Bolt, Faras, Litrocab and the rest. So what alternatives do you have in terms of managing that vehicle or putting it out there into the market so that it can serve the clientele for the ride hailing? So the first option is this: you can decide to drive that car yourself. That is the most recommended way. It is the most satisfactory way. It is one of the ways that you will be able to earn maximum income while still taking very, very good care of your car, because in this country, cars driven by the owners have history of good maintenance, have history of good usage, and they can last long, and their rate of breakdown is very less. Okay, but now the challenge of driving your own car is the fact that probably we are not all available to drive our own vehicles. All of us probably are employed. Some people have other jobs that they want to attend to. Maybe you even don't have a driving license. Some people, maybe it's not even in their passion to drive taxi. So a lot of people will not want to maybe drive their own cars. So if that is not an option for you, what other alternatives do you have? So driving your own car is the most recommended. And maybe to add on to that, you don't have to be driving that car full time, meaning that every day you wake and drive. Sometimes I have done the math and I have proven that even if you only drive during the weekends, during holidays, and maybe any other day when you take off from your workplace, you can actually make an equivalent amount of money that your full-time driver can give you while using your car less. And that is part-time driving. It has a good potential of revenue, but again, you have to be very disciplined. Again, you must not be in a job that takes all your time. If you are employed, then you need a flexible job whereby maybe you work Monday to Friday, you don't work on Saturday and Sunday, and then your work is not so much demanding in terms of your concentration. I said that people who do office work and they really need to sit down and focus and concentrate and put their body into what they are doing, then Uber might distract you from delivering great results because it will make you get tired. So don't try Uber part-time driving if you really need to focus on a high demanding job. So let's get into the second option if driving your own car is not something you want to consider. So the second option here is that you hire a driver. And when hiring drivers, there are so many alternatives that are available. Okay, you can raise up a driver for yourself. You can look for a person in your village who is very needy. Okay, a person that has been doing jobs that pay them terribly less, in a way that if you bring them to take care of your car, to drive around and give you a certain amount of money and make a certain amount of money for themselves, they would appreciate. And definitely that is the approach that I have always used for my vehicles. I'm never in a hurry to recruit a driver. I'm never in a hurry to give away my car. So I always take my time. I go back to my village. I see young people there who are in need to transition their lifestyle from being rural people to migrate to town and come and start something without necessarily me hosting them and giving them something every day like a handout. I bring them in town and I give them a car to work with. And some of these guys, they really appreciate the opportunity I gave them to come to town and drive and maybe make a minimum of 1,000 shillings or maybe 2,000 sometimes even up to 5K. Like, they see me as a person who made their dreams come true. And one of those guys has really stayed with my car for almost 3 years now. Others have stayed with 2 years, and then another one left when I sold the other vehicle. So those type of driver recruitment approach are very sustainable, and it creates a very long lasting partnership where even the driver sees as if you are winning. But as you can imagine, that approach is very limiting in terms of how many drivers can you bring up in a given period. Maybe you have quite a lot of money, you have quite a number of vehicles you already have, and you want to find drivers. That approach can delay your growth, and you will find that maybe it is not practical. Sometimes you will also mentor a driver to take your car, and then 1 or 6 months maybe after he has stayed with your car, he feels like he needs to move on and buy his own car, and then he abandons you after all the investment you have done on them. So that's a solution that would work really for someone who is a beginner in the industry, for someone who is maybe risk averse, for someone maybe who has only one vehicle. So if your intention is maybe to experiment the industry by just having one vehicle for maybe 1 or 2 years before you start scaling up, that is the approach that you need to get, because it is very safe for you, has very little risk, and it will give you maximum returns while exposing you to less risk, because the guy will definitely be your friend. He will have a history of where you have come from, and then he will take good care of your car at any given circumstance. All right. So, and then the second option for recruiting a driver is whereby now you work with any driver available without doing too much of due diligence, without caring about the personality of the driver. But again, in that case, you need a reinforcement mechanism that will help you document and track the behavior of that driver. And this is how it works. Let's say, for example, you have a vehicle, and then you tell me, Joe, get me a driver tomorrow, and I'll tell you, here is the driver, and you give him the car. What will give you the comfort that that driver is not misusing the vehicle? He's not going to zones outside the authorized geography. He's not overspeeding, and at least gives you confidence that the car is in good use. The only way that can make you comfortable is installing surveillance mechanism inside that vehicle. So I have seen people invest in heavy tracking devices, heavy Internet of Things that collects data about how that driver is using that vehicle. And I will tell you more advanced story about how these tracking mechanisms are used even by some companies to manage their drivers. These are the systems that are used by fleet companies. These are the systems that are used by companies, the corporate companies that have vehicles, and they have given them to drivers. So in this case, once you buy a car, you really don't need to know that driver quite well. All you need to do is install a tracker. It will tell you where that driver is. Install other Internet of Things. I know these tracking companies will advise you on everything that you can install to collect as much information as possible. Some people will put driver facing camera, so at any given point you can turn on your phone and check who is driving that car. You can also install speed monitors so that you are able to see, is this driver actually accelerating abruptly or putting a very heavy foot on your vehicle and then braking abruptly in a way that it can even mess up with the braking system. Something else, you can also monitor the distance that driver is traveling every day, in a way that you can know whether that car is changing hands, because there are some drivers who will drive during the day and give others during the night. So when you have that device, you are able to actually fire a driver after a week, and you don't really need to know those drivers too much. All you need is a device or a system that allows you to look at the behavior of the driver according to the usage. Okay, but on this other side also, you need a driver at least who is paying you as agreed, who agrees to bring the car for you to you, so that you can supervise and view it whether it is being used well. But on the soft side, the system will support you to collect all that information and keep you updated on how the driver is actually using that vehicle. So that is very important, and why that is a strategy that can work when you want to scale up. You can have even 10 vehicles, install all the systems there, and then at any given point, you are able even to compare the statistics of drivers who is having more of red alerts from all their driving behaviors. And what you do, you just call them one day, come, I want us to meet, I want us to discuss 1, 2, 3, and you tell him, return the vehicle keys because I cannot continue with you. And then you recruit another driver immediately, and then you start monitoring. So that is a strategy that a lot of investors have used to scale up, their businesses, to buy even up to 20 cars, put on the Uber business, and have them operated by drivers that they don't know at all. So now that is a strategy, the second strategy for hiring drivers. The other strategy is whereby you, as the Uber investor, you don't want to be involved at all in all this management of your car. Maybe you only had money to invest by buying a car, but you have no idea about how this industry works. You have no idea about the potential amount of money that a driver should give you. If a driver tells you that there was a strike today and I didn't go to work, maybe the taxi drivers were striking, will you be in a position to know? If the driver tells you that nowadays business is completely down, all I can make to pay you is maybe 500 shillings in a day instead of 1300, you are not in a position to defend yourself in that angle. So in that circumstance, what you can use is what we call the fleet management companies or fleet managers. So when it comes to fleet management, there are companies that are very well known. Like in Kenya, we have Fleet Simplify, we have Cosmo, what? Yeah, it's called Cosmo. You can check whether it's Cosmo Limited or Cosmo Business. Those two companies are very well known in terms of managing vehicles on behalf. Okay, so one of the biggest challenge when your car is managed by the fleet companies is that, first of all, okay, it's a good advantage for you because you will not want to worry about anything about your vehicle. The driver will be managed by these fleet companies. The money will be remitted to the fleet companies, and the fleet companies will pay you instead of the driver. Actually, you will even never get to know who drives your car unless maybe you meet it on the road and you identify the number plate, you see it matches the car you bought, and then you can greet the driver, and it's only at that point you can see the driver. But these fleet companies will not allow you to know who is the driver. So at least you'll be busy with your stuff as your car does the job, and someone else will be occupied in terms of monitoring. But one of the biggest disadvantages is that the drivers who drive these fleet managed vehicles, they are asked more money than drivers who are managed individually by the car owners. So for instance, the average amount of money that an individual driver gives to an individual car owner will be in the range of 1,000 to 1,500. For relatively very new vehicles, they will be like 1,500, and then for older vehicles and larger engine capacities will be around 1,000. So if you give your car to a fleet company, they will tend to ask drivers for something between 1,700 to 2,000 per day. You get my point? So there is a clear difference of around 500 shillings difference between what I'm asking my individual driver and what the fleet company will ask. So what happens after that? That will lead to that driver who is driving the fleet company to overwork for long hours. Definitely he has to collect 500 more than a regular driver. So meaning that your car will need to travel an extra maybe 20-30 kilometers in a day for him to match a person driving an individual vehicle. So in that case, at the end of the day, you will find that your car will end up being used and misused. And of course, the attitude is everything. When I am a fleet driver, I know that I am paying more than someone driving somebody's vehicle on individual arrangement. So my attitude definitely is not the best. And again, the attitude of driving a company vehicle has always led to misuse. We all know that any vehicle that is company managed or company owned, drivers will tend not to be very careful because at the end of the day, they see it as a common good. They see it as a public utility product, and then they tend to use it as if it has no owner. Because once you return that car to the company, you don't know who receives it, you don't know who is the actual owner. So I have seen very, very new number plate vehicles that are managed by fleets, but they look torn out and worn out and completely overused and misused. And that is the truth. Unless, of course, within those fleet companies, you have good drivers that take good care of cars. But the general truth is that fleet managed vehicles are used more than the individually managed vehicles. But again, these fleet companies, as I told you, they now use these monitoring devices to help them monitor which driver has poor driving behaviors, have irregular, kind of behaviors in terms of where they go, whether they change car hands, they give it to someone else. They are very quickly able to identify that because some of them install those cameras just to know who is driving that car at any given time. So, and then one other thing, in terms of income, I have told you that these fleet companies will ask for 1,700 to 2,000 from a driver every day. But the reality is that out of all that money they collect, okay, they will give you a certain amount and keep another for themselves. So there are several pricing models that I have seen these fleet companies proposing to car owners, and the reality is that out of the 1,700 that they collect, only 1,400 will be considered yours. Okay, because there are some booking fee, they have some maintenance fee here and there, and then out of the 1,400 that is yours, they will take a commission for management. They call it a management fee. So at the end of the day, if your car is being managed by the fleet company, you will actually take home an amount equivalent to an individual partner who is being paid around 1,200 shillings per day. Because out of the 1,400 they collect from you every day, they will take around 15 to 20% as their management fee. So out of the 40,000 they collect in a month, for example, they will have to take like 10K, and then they give you, what do I say? The remaining 30,000. But again, they have very, very flexible models. They have several options. So the option that I'm giving you is whereby they only manage the driver for you. But if you want them to manage your car servicing, you want them to manage your insurance company, you want them to, repair and do spares when things happen, then they will ask for an extra amount of money or an extra percentage from the money they collect on top of the commission. So if you are completely hands-free from your vehicle at all, if anything happens, it's the responsibility of the fleet to manage, then they could end up taking up to 50% of all the money they collect. But every other thing will be on them. That could sound very nice, but the reality is that these fleet companies, in most of the time, they will give you a 6-month contract for the car management that they keep renewing. So they will look at the year of manufacture, they will look at the mileage, and then that would inform them what kind of contract they will give you. There are people who will get 1 year outright contract, other vehicles will get 6 months, they will propose 2 years. Because for instance, if you take to them a vehicle that has a mileage of I would say 30,000 kilometers, of course they will be very happy to give you a 2-year contract. But if you go to them with a car that has 200,000 kilometers, definitely they will tell you this is a 6-month contract, renewable. So in that option whereby it is them taking care of your car, they will actually be hesitant to renew your contract if for the last 6 months they got a lot of troubles with your car, because definitely they don't want a car that they keep spending money on. So you need to watch that out. So if you take your car to the fleet and then it starts to disturb them, they might reject it. And I will tell you that some of these fleet companies right now, they are only accepting 2015 models and above. 2015 cars in terms of year of manufacture and above, because those cars are relatively new, they have lesser issues. But the truth of the industry is that cars of 2013 and above are accepted. So why are they only picking 2015 and above? So that tells you that when your car starts to develop issues, is not welcome there. So that is the option that exists for the corporate fleet companies. But again, there is also another option for individuals like myself, though I don't do it. There are people who have invested in the industry, they have their own cars, like 10 or 5, and then they offer to manage other people's vehicle on a personal arrangement. Okay, so mine, because I'm busy with other stuff, I have not gotten to that level, because I would say even my vehicles are managed by, I would say my spouse, because I'm busy up and down. But there are people who have like vehicles that they own, and then they propose to support people in managing their vehicles. So there could be several arrangements. Maybe if you are an investor outside Nairobi and your car is operating in Nairobi, you can get an individual person like myself or someone else, and then you agree that he will be supervising your driver, he will be supervising your car. Because the investor is in Mombasa or the owner of the car is in Nakuru or elsewhere, he will tell you every weekend, I will be requesting the driver to come to you, just see the status of the vehicle, just watch out about the outside, whether the body is in good shape, whether there has been a small accident or not. Just look at the interior, just give an impression of how you think the vehicle is being used. Okay, if the driver says that maybe the vehicle has broken down or I have been arrested, I'm at this police station, then me as the manager, maybe you can request me to go and look for that, go and just confirm that the guy has been arrested, go and confirm that the car has had an accident. Like in case of emergency, you have a person who can support you. If the driver tells you that maybe he's sick, you can send your manager to just go and confirm that your driver is feeling unwell or something like that, in case of doubt. So those are individual fleet managers. Definitely they are cheap, but of course they are not very reliable, because your arrangement is more on personal arrangement than something that is more contractual. So I know people like those who exist in Nairobi, and if you need connections, I would be really happy to connect you to those kind of people. So I think that is all that I needed to inform you guys about getting into the taxi industry and what it would look like for you, depending on the path that you choose. Definitely, if you Google, if you browse my channel, you will see videos speaking into revenue potential depending on the stream of management that you choose. So that was it for today, and wishing you a nice time. And now I think it's time for me to go into something else, and have a very nice weekend. Cheers and bye-bye. Come in, Fuata.